Hello everybody and welcome to FinTech Futures. We are here at day 2 of Money 2020 Europe in Amsterdam. A very, very busy day for everybody here involved in the conference. My name is Tyler Paith. I'm a reporter for FinTech Futures. And right now I'm very, very happy to be joined by Lynda Clarke of Tribe Payments. Lynda, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
Good. Are you enjoying Money 2020 so far?
As you say, it's very busy, very hectic, but really great to connect with everybody that's here and to listen to some really interesting conversations that have been happening.
Well, it's fantastic to have you with us for a moment. I know that you're very, very busy, so thank you very much for joining us here today. Before we get going, we've got some really, really interesting topics to talk about. We're talking about hyper-personalisation, payments, and all of the good stuff that's really at the core of Money 2020 here today. But before we do that, why don't we give our audience, who maybe aren't familiar with Tribe Payments, possibly maybe not, the opportunity to introduce who you are, what your position is, and what Tribe Payments does, please.
Certainly. So Tribe's a 5-year-old business. Well, 5.5 now, you know, that half is pretty important. And we actually launched Tribe at Money 2020 a few years back. Tribe, a really quite a unique business. We're a technology provider for payments companies. But what makes us a little bit different is we operate across the whole transaction. So if you think about the way that you buy something and you spend money and the whole transaction piece. So we look at acquiring, so we offer acquirer processing with a gateway and point of sale, but we also look at issuer processing and all of the value-added services like 3DS that are within that, and also wallet and digital banking. So we literally operate across the whole transaction, which is what makes Tribe really unique. And when people ask me who our competitors are, of course we have lots of competitors, but I truly believe no one does exactly what we do at the moment.
Yes, that sounds like a very, very interesting remit, and to be quite honest, quite a full remit as well.
Yeah, I mean, it comes with its own challenges, but it is what makes us unique, and it is what helps us have the conversations with customers. And actually, our proposition is what helps our customers to grow, because they can take one part of our business and actually grow other parts of their value propositions pretty quickly. My role within Tribe, so I've been with Tribe about 2.5 years now. And my role within Tribe is Chief Operating Officer. It literally means that most days I wear a different hat. So one day I'm working in the marketing side, one day the operations, one day customer success, implementation. So there's a whole different element of stuff, but it's all about customer experience and making sure that we give our customers the right experience.
I mean, that's really one of the home messages of Money 2020 Europe this year is really meeting customers, clients, whoever they are, where they want to be met, which is really, really interesting, an interesting stance to have. I think it's something that's easier to say, but actually in practice, it's, you know, got a million hurdles and you need to go 100 miles an hour. I mean, what has that process sort of looked like for Tribe and in its services?
So I asked my team actually, why do customers buy from us? What problems do we solve? And I think that for a lot of businesses, even if they think they sell a value proposition, very often they're just selling the features and what a company does. So I think what we're really trying to focus on is why we do what we do, like what problems are we solving for our customers. And that's something that we're really focusing on Tribe. You know, why do we win business? And it's not just because that person knows that person over there. People are buying because they've got problems, and that's kind of what we're trying to focus on at the moment. And that means, in turn, we'll be building the right things to solve the problems for our customers.
It's interesting that you should use that term, you know, building the right things for your customers and you know, meeting your customers where they want to be met, because you're actually fresh off the stage. You've just spoken on a session addressing hyper-personalisation. Can you tell us a little bit more about the session?
Yeah, of course. So it's an interesting one, because actually when someone said to me, oh, hyper-personalisation, I thought, oh, not another buzzword, right? It's like we have so many of them. And what's the hyper part of personalisation? And I'm not a data expert, I'm not a data scientist, but I am really passionate about customer experience, and I want to make sure that I kind of embrace those theories as we try and build out better customer experiences within this industry. And I started to think about hyper-personalisation and what that meant, and much of my presentation kind of went into what is it and why is it important, rather than telling people exactly what they needed to do. At the end, we went through some kind of key areas of that, but really the difference between personalisation and hyper-personalisation is where to start with this. So personalisation I see as, knowing what you like because you've done it before, right? So you know what you like because you did it before, or you know what you don't like because you did it before. Hyper-personalisation, and I referred it to in my presentation of being like my mum, who knows what I want to do before I know I want to do it. Yeah, so it uses amplified data sets to say, okay, you made that click, you did that, this, you normally do this, and it starts to make predictions within that data. And that's what hyper-personalisation is. It's real-time, unique messaging, as opposed to, oh, because you bought that, you might like this, right? So it's a slightly different and more unique set of recommendations that you can use. So that's kind of what we did, and the reason I started to then think about, okay, and I spoke about this quite a lot within the presentation, is, okay, we expect that now on a daily basis. So if you think about, I don't know if you use Spotify or Apple Music or Netflix or whatever other streaming service you might use, they give recommendations to you based on what you've done before, right? They make playlists, they'll make playlists of things they think you're going to like. So that's one element of it. You have apps that are your health apps that now kind of tailor that service, like they tailor an experience for you. Some really good ones recently in my own life. So my stepson started to learn to drive, and then he passed his test, and we were looking for insurance for him. And there's now insurance companies that you have boxes in your car, so it's not just the same as a black box, but just kind of a box that you put in the car. And it works out, if you're driving really well, it reduces your policy. So it tailors the policy and the pricing against how you're actually driving. Now, of course, if you're a terrible driver, that might not be working so well for you. Amazon is another one, and retail have gone through the shift from in-store, having the friendly shop assistant talking to you and upselling you when you're in the store, to actually digital, and you're having to go and search and hunt down the goods. So a few years back, we'd go and maybe to a search engine, maybe to a website, and we'd be searching for goods. Retail have worked hard to make sure that those goods now find you. So the goods find you, sometimes before you even know you want them. And I know my doorbell rings quite regularly with things that I probably never needed in the first place. But retail have had to make that shift. There's still a way to go, and they can continue to make in kind of bigger progress. But when you look at how we live our daily lives, the financial services industry is not there yet. And then we touched upon, okay, so why does it really matter? And I talked a lot about Gen Z. So I'm a mother of 2 Gen Z children. So I recognise the differences in the way that they're thinking. They're the first truly digital generation. And it scared me a little bit, but they're now between the ages of 12 and I think it was 28, which kind of was a bit mind-blowing for me. Yeah. But by next year, I think it was 27% of the workforce. So by 2025, 27% of the workforce are going to be made up of Gen Z, or Zoomers as they're known. And I had a lot of statistics about, okay, what was the expectation? And I can't remember the exact stats. So, but it was around 76% get upset if they don't get a personalised experience, and 71% just expect it, because the way we live our lives with all of the previous kind of examples that I've given, and there are many, many more, they just expect it. So it's unusual to not have that. And then as soon as you start engaging with banks and any kind of financial institution that you're going to use within your life, you don't get that service. It's kind of why?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really interesting few points that you've raised there, Lynda. I completely agree with you from what I'm seeing. in my very different, admittedly very different perspective of the industry, is that that drive of personalization is really becoming increasingly important. And I love what you mentioned about the Gen Z and all the different demographics sort of coming into the world and what their demands and needs are. With that in mind, and I think the need for hyper-personalization, as you've mentioned, is really central to a lot of industries. You mentioned it in insurance, which I don't own a car and I don't have insurance for cars, so that was very new to me, and I found that really fascinating.
Yeah.
And quite beneficial as well. And you talked about the instances in retail where, for example, Amazon, as you said, have really come far and had personalization. Why is the same not happening then in financial services and banking?
I think there's a couple of ways of looking at it. I think hyper-personalization is both in marketing and in service, right? So I think we're doing more in the service place. So we're trying to automate experiences, although I would say they're personalized rather than hyper-personalized. Okay. So kind of knowing what people have done before. So they're trying to use AI and different tools to see if that's what they'd want to do again. But very rarely would I ring my bank the same reason, like constantly. Yeah. But so they're doing some stuff in IVRs and different ways to kind of help service. But I'd question whether it was true hyper-personalization, and that's, of course, some most likely are. But there's also marketing, so how we engage customers in the first place. So one of the interesting stats I read was, I think it's like 51% of Gen Z already have some kind of investment. But in the UK, 43% of those investors were influenced by someone else. So they had a fear of missing out on that investment. And often they're cryptocurrencies or kind of stocks and shares, that type of thing. And it could be of any value, right? But they do have something and they're influenced by the people. Who are they influenced by? It's not who we were once influenced by, it's now kind of the social media. So my children think social media stars are famous, and they are, right? To them, they are. Yeah. And they talk about, whereas we talk about movie stars and things like that, they talk about YouTube stars, and it's those types of influences. So are we using the right communication channels to actually engage them in the first place? So do they feel that that's the experience that they want? And then how do we hyper-personalize the experience as we onboard and do that? Coming back to your question of why we are not, I think it was why we're not doing enough. Yeah. I think we're scared, to be honest. I think that there's a lot of regulation, a lot of data privacy policies, a lot of reasons why, we could cross the line into creepy stalker territory, and people start thinking you're following them or listening to them, and that becomes slightly terrifying to people who have not been brought up in that environment. So there is a line that you can't cross, and I think we're scared of that. I also think a lot of companies have issues with legacy technologies, actually collecting the data in the first place to start making some of those decisions through the data is also challenging. So I think the two main reasons are data and their ability to collect accurate and valuable data in the first place, and regulation and it being just a bit scary to step over that line to do it. In practice then, what are the measures that set personalization apart from hyper-personalization? Well, personalization, I'd say, is more about, okay, I know roughly how much you earn, so I'm going to send you a loan with a certain interest rate, but it's to a group of people, so it might be a salary between X and Z, and they send the same offer to kind of a group of people, so it's kind of personalized. Or I'm ringing up my bank and I'm on the IVR system, and last time I selected a certain service, so they think I'm going to select that certain service again. So it's because I've done something in the past. It's kind of saying, oh, you're probably going to want to do that again, rather than I'm shopping online and I'm on Google or whatever search engine and popping in new cars, and the clicks register with other things, and my bank knows, or I might be on my mobile phone looking at, I don't know, We Buy Any Car or whatever, and you're on it and you're looking, and suddenly you get a loan offer from your bank for a new car. That's more hyper-personalization. It's real-time messaging. Right. So it's looking at real-time messaging.
And in terms of, from Tribe Payments perspective, when you're talking to your clients and you're seeing what they want and what they're telling you that they need, is personalization, hyper-personalization always the top of that agenda, or are there different things that are coming through from different clients?
I wish it was at the top of their agenda. And I think the reason it's not is because people aren't talking about it enough and doing enough about it. I think AI and kind of the big data has been on the agenda for a really long time, but I think actually executing a strategy about that is not. So I think it should be. I absolutely think it should be. It's not always on my customers' first thing that they're talking to us about, because they're at the time trying to implement the technology and work through that. But certainly reporting and data is up there. And I think AI is absolutely something that people are talking a lot about, but it's how you link those two things. So it's great having great AI tools and it's great having the data, but actually it's more valuable to understand the patterns within that data, implement the right AI tools to give you what I call the crystal ball effect, right? So you can start to guess, like my mother, what people are going to want. And that's the bit that's missing. And I challenged the audience yesterday to say, okay, of all the things that you're going to do, if this is really important and you believe these stats, you know, that we're talking about, and they're all McKinsey stats, by the way, I should probably mention that. How many data scientists have you got, right? In your organization now, how many data scientists do you have? And if the answer is 0, that's the first step to take in trying to move forward in this, right? Okay. Someone that can help you translate that massive data that you have and connect the dots to start working through what that means. And it could be 1 data scientist you need, it could be 5, 10, like it depends on the organization size and what they're aiming to do. But certainly my first point would be, okay, you've got your data lake, that's really, really important, but have you got enough data scientists that are going to help you work through what this means? And then, do you have the right AI tools? Do you have the right predictive tools that can help you do that? And there's so many companies out there doing some really great things that if you start to bring those and embed them into your technology, you can have some really meaningful messages. I use some examples in our industry, like Bank of Ireland are doing some really good stuff where they're using the same type of technology that the big tech use, where they're tagging and tracking things, and then you creating a language which predicts what customers are going to do, so they can send real-time messaging. And I think I can't remember I think it was 283% increase in their digital applications. So you can see that just by doing some of these things, it's worth the investment because the results speak for themselves. But there is a line, because you don't want to become the creepy stalker.
No.
And people do need to take their privacy policies really, really seriously, because if you start doing hyper-personalisation, it will come under scrutiny at some point. So make sure you have a firm framework for that.
I really, really love what you're saying here, Lynda. I think you've touched on some really, really key points, some really, really strong points. But by means of a sort of a conclusion, you know, if I'm a company listening to our conversation now, maybe I'm a startup, maybe I'm quite a well-established company that's been in the market for a decade or two, you know, and I'm hearing data scientists, I'm hearing data, I'm hearing hyper-personalization, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to do that. That's out of my reach, you know, and if that's out of my reach, how am I ever going to be able to compete, you know? Say that was a thought that was going through the minds of those listening to our conversation right now. What would you say, Spring?
I think take a step back, think about the 1%, the little moving the needle each time. So yes, I get hyper-personalization actually sounds more buzzy than I think it is. And if your business has data, which every business holds some form of data, and if you don't, you need to make sure you're working with the right providers to collect that data, because you cannot hyper-personalize without valuable data. AI tools do not replace data. They have to use good data to get good results. So the first place is where's your data collected and how? Data scientists are extremely valuable, and that's if you're going to invest somewhere in your business and you care about personalized experiences, I would certainly start thinking about how do you bring just one data scientist into your organization to help you make those decisions. There are companies that can support with people coming in as a consultant to do that. So I think you don't necessarily even have to make a full-on investment in it.
It's more accessible
than people think. It sounds more scary than it is. I think just think about those two things to start with, and then you can work through, okay, so where will my business most be relevant for hyper-personalisation. The data scientists will help you with the answers that have been found from the data in the first place.
So fascinating. And I love that we're sort of ending on that takeaway, you know, so like a real actionable suggestion to put into motion for these companies. Lynda Clarke, it's been fantastic to speak to you. Thank you so much. I understand we can't take up too much of your time because you're quite, must be very busy as lots of people here are at Money20. But thank you so much for this conversation. Yes, we hope to catch up with Tribe Payments again very soon.
Thank you.
That was Lynda Clarke, everybody, from Tribe Payments. And if you would like to hear more about Tribe Payments, hyper-personalisation, or Money20 Europe, please head over to our website at fintechfutures.com. You can also catch us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Until then, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.